Okay, well, why don't we get started here? Welcome. Thank you all for coming. We've got a little bit less turnout than we had last time, but we appreciate the interest, and that's what this is about. Sorry?
Too much snow out there.
Yes, too much snow. Last time there was more snow.
No, actually,
Yeah. Okay, so let's start off. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
justice for
underground, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the purpose of this meeting, the planning board wants to hear from the citizens of Barre what they think about allowing recreational marijuana establishments in town and the cultivation of marijuana on a commercial basis. And also in these regulations, they allow on-site consumption if that's voted on to allow it. There was a question last time about the law that was passed by the voters allows personal consumption. It allows an individual to grow a certain number of plants, and that's not anything that's on the agenda or on the table for this. I mean, that's the law, and so that goes into effect, and that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is mainly retail recreational establishments and how that would work and what the licensing requirements would be. So if I may, I'd like to give you just a little brief history here of how we got to where we are. Some of you have heard this before, but bear with me. On November 8th, 2016, the Massachusetts voters approved ballot question number 4, allowing recreational marijuana use, which included cultivation and retail facilities. And a majority of the voters in Barre voted to approve this law. It was about 57% of the people who voted to approve it. Because a lot of these provisions took effect very soon after the ballot, and because there were no town bylaws and there were no state regulations governing this, the local governments were advised to adopt a temporary moratorium on these types of facilities until such time as the state drafted their regulations. The town of Barre at the town meeting in June of 2017 voted for a moratorium to prevent issuing licenses for retail facilities and cultivation facilities until these state regulations had been drafted and the town had written a bylaw to implement it. The draft regulations were issued on December 21st, 2017, so we've had them for a little more than a month now. And we're looking at those. There's a lot of information in there, and the state changed some of the provisions that were in the original law as adopted by the voters. So it's sort of complicated. But anyway, we have those draft regs, and we would let those regulations, we would use those to develop a bylaw to govern this type of activity. So, with that having said, I'll open it up to comments. If you would, come up to the front here so everyone can hear you. We don't have a microphone this time, but if anyone has any comments, please come up.
Joseph Frost, I live in Walnut Grove, and it bothers me that marijuana is still not available in the state, even though the voters, voted their approval of it. I'm tired of the fact that my wife has to go to Northampton and get and wait in line to get a legal quantity of marijuana because it's the only place in Western Mass that sells it. And I don't understand the stance of our politicians, our governor, and the treasurer of the state. I'm tired of the fact that they're so afraid of marijuana, where there's almost conclusive evidence that no violence or robberies occurs as a result of marijuana smoking, and as opposed to the opioid epidemic. So I'm also tired of the fact that our elected leaders, think they know better.
Okay, thank you.
What did people say last week there was a dispensary in Leicester now?
I think it was in that application, I think.
Come up front.
I think because there is no employment for young people at all.
Name?
Who is
And
it?
I think if we can have Colin doing that,
Steve
he'll be
Clark.
out of the way. It won't be in the
Steve
center
Clark.
of town. There's employees, 15 or 50 young people there. It would be such a plus. That's all I got to say.
Oh, do you just mind stating your name for the record?
Stephen Clark.
Okay, no pressure.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
I think there is one.
Yes, sir.
Phil Stevens, Carter Stevens Farm. Thank you for having these meetings. I think it's very important. I wish I got more involved in the solar ones that you had before those regs came out. But I think what this marijuana thing is going to be a lot like the solar, where a target is going to be put on Barre because of the large fields. It's the first place really out of Boston that you can really start cultivating a marijuana product. We had a green light on solar right off the bat that you guys put in with Dina and Dolly, which was a very good thing. But then all the businessmen looked at Barry that it's very friendly. And then the solar just came in waves. So you had the hard job of fixing that problem, and you haven't fixed it. And I think you've gone a little bit far where farmers can't put in solar. It has to be commercial. I believe it's very similar to what's going to happen. We already have a marijuana facility that's going to be built in Barre. There's going to be a lot of businesses now looking that we are friendly to that, and I think that's a good thing. But you guys are going to have to come up with a plan, just like you did with solar. What I would like to recommend is that you don't cut the farmer out like you did with solar. The farmers should be able to get involved with the growing of this, the cultivating of it. And so when you're making your consideration, the farmers are what make this town what it is. And the dairy industry is all but dead. If someone has a large parcel of land, I believe it should be okay to grow if people can't see it, if it's back away. Unlike solar, if you have a back 40, so to speak, that's rocky, not good for anything, I can't put solar in. it should be allowed in that. Some landowners, I believe, made some bad decisions on solar and put it right in people's faces. And then you guys had to come up with a plan to fix that, and you did. But I believe it went too far. So hopefully the marijuana thing we'll be able to look at. And all I ask is, don't leave the farmers out, because the farmers are the ones that hire the people, that have the land, that pay the taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just respond to that? Well, first I'd like to mention that there are some papers over here that are from the National Institutes of Health that provide information on health and statistics on effects of marijuana and alcohol. And can I make them a part of the record of this meeting?
Yes, we'll get them and make it a part of the record.
In response to Mr. Stevens, I just wanted to mention that there are regulations about the growing of marijuana. That's not what this is about, the establishment of a retail store. I think that the growing is very much regulated, isn't it?
Well, this is about the growing of it too, the cultivation, yes.
That's all. I just wanted to mention this information that we have over there.
Okay, and we'll get a copy of each one of those and make it a part of the record. Okay?
Chris Higgins, local business owner. Just saying,
Welcome.
I support it. I support what Phil said, and like this in town.
Thank you.
Okay. Aye.
I think it's one of those push buttons that you follow.
No. No assistance. Everyone's okay, yes.
What's your name?
Justin Ross.
Tell them we might need some assistance later.
Tell them about some people.
Okay, we're still open for comments. I wanted to welcome two people here. Jeff Bagg and Janet Pierce are both with the CMRPC. And the CMRPC has done a tremendous job in helping the local communities manage through the process of the recreational marijuana. They've put on numbers of meetings, numbers of seminars, right from day one, to help the local communities understand what this meant and what the reg said. They're reading the draft regulations now, and there's another seminar that's going to take place Friday, February 2nd this week, to sort of bring everyone up to date. So I wanted to thank them. They've done a fantastic job, and it's been a huge help to us through this process. So thank you.
Yes. Just Google it, they'll come up very
Okay, do we have some more comments? Kathy?
Just Kathleen Inman, and I know I did speak 2 weeks ago, just to comment again about the fact that medical marijuana exists in Massachusetts, and it has already been allowed, and what you do in your home has already been established. The plants that can be grown has already been established, American marijuana. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about recreational marijuana, and that's what you are working on for your bylaws and your regulations. And the only thing is, as a teacher and as a person who has been a part of Q Drug, since its inception in the last 3.5 years, we're not talking about adults, because adults are already regulated with what they can and cannot do. We're talking about young people and the brains of young people and the growth of young people, and especially those children who are 11 and 12, into their early 20s, and the growth of their brain. It has been demonstrated by doctors that, the way in which the brain is growing, they're much more susceptible if they receive marijuana at a very early age. So all I'm just saying to you is great concern about young people and the growth of their brain and what happens with the situation with marijuana and what it can lead to in the future. That's what the concern is. We do have the middle high school in our town. We receive all of the children from all of our communities. And the fact that there's a great concern about the police and what it's going to take for police action to take care of this situation, and where is the money going to come from. So I think one of the things you must look at when you look at this bylaw is, how is this going to be paid for to help the town of Barre stay the town of Barre if you decide that there should be a recreational establishment in the town of Barre, especially because we have the regional school in our town. And so how are you going to make sure there's enough money to take care of watching over these children, helping them in the future if they do, when they do have problems? How are you going to guide them and help them monetarily and help the town of Barre out monetarily with what your decisions are going to be? Those are just considerations that I ask you to look at.
I would just like to respond in the sense that this, the law that we are speaking to and the establishment of a retail facility in town, we are addressing a law that is, we're talking about adults who are over 21 being able to purchase marijuana, not children. I don't think any of us would support selling marijuana to children. And the fact that children in some studies have lost IQ points in studies where one child uses marijuana and another doesn't. But in fact, when further studies were done in twin samples, those IQ point differences disappeared. I just wanted to put that out there. There are IQ differences in some cases, but when twin studies were done, those IQ differences were attributed to environmental differences and other familial factors. That's explained in the issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think anything negative about all this is the black market. Black market's already doing it all. By doing all this to legalize it, apartments here, we'll take that away from the black market. They're winning. We're gonna fight back. That's the best way to do it.
Step right up.
Jeff?
So, I'm Jeff Baggett, Central Massachusetts Planning Commission, and we've been, as an agency, pretty active in providing towns with technical assistance over the past year to year and a half. I want to give credit to the planning board for holding this session and session 4. So I think it's good to start the dialogue between the planning board and the residents. Just to kind of paint a bigger picture from when the ballot question was proposed last November, it certainly legalized marijuana for personal use, as some other people said, and that is just completely separate from what the planning board would be talking about and is talking about now. So that is sort of clarified, said and done, and that exists. And the other part of the ballot question basically said that with the overall yes vote in Massachusetts to legalize it, it also authorized towns to then consider other commercial marijuana establishments. And so between last November and just December, it finally took some shape in these draft regulations. And what the state's commission did is laid out 7 or 8 categories of marijuana establishments. So I've heard a couple people say different things. So I just wanted to offer a little bit of the bigger picture. So, it's broken down into categories of certain uses. So obviously retail was mentioned, and that's just one category that would be something that the town of Barre could consider allowing or prohibiting. The other major categories are cultivation. So primarily up until fairly recently, this was envisioned or talked about as inside buildings. And so for the medical marijuana program, it was exclusively inside structures. And with the draft regulations, it became much more clear that the state is looking to encourage some level of farming outdoors. But I think we're all pretty cognizant that we're not California, so there's some climate differences and there's some things to consider with the outdoor cultivation. And I won't go into it, but there's a long list of requirements for an outdoor facility. And the big one is that it can't be visible from a public way. And then there's security measures. And that's the part that isn't really clear yet. So the draft regulations came out in December. The state has until mid-March to have the final regulations in place. And so there's this point in time where we are now where there's some potential for changes still to occur. So once the final regulations are in place, I think boards like the planning board will have all the information they need to start engaging in a little bit deeper conversation with the town about what they want. There's a subcategory for cultivation of a craft marijuana cultivator cooperative. So it's a group of Massachusetts residents who form a business, and they could have growing facilities not just in one town, but multiple towns. And I guess the analogy is the dairy co-ops. So if you think of Cabot Creamery, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of variation within that one category. There's product manufacturer, and which is it's described as to obtain, manufacture, and process marijuana products. And so there are some ways that you can take plants and make it into other materials. And so that's the manufacturing part of it. So that is something that you might think in terms of like an industrial use. It's going to be in a building, and there may be machinery involved and things like that. There's marijuana research facility and testing laboratories, which are also necessary for the full process to sell it. So then the products get moved to these other places and it's tested. And then research is a little bit more on the medical side. But again, those are more industrial type uses or research office park type uses that get worked into this program. There's a newer category for transportation. So it is important to know that in towns that ban the use, the law says that you cannot prohibit the transportation of marijuana through your town. There's some questions about how delivery would work, but the state regulations are seemingly pointing towards that as an option. And then just recently with the regulations, they created a micro business category, which is for a very small growing operation, whether it's indoors or outdoors. And so that's a newer item that there's not a lot of clarity on what it looks like. So that's the kind of thing that will develop between now and the I was trying to end on the retail. So there is a storefront dispensary model, which is another use category. And then related to that is one of the more complex aspects is social consumption. So I think the planning board mentioned that. And that's a process that would be brought by a citizen petition, and it would have to go on a ballot of this town to have the town residents vote whether or not to allow an on-site consumption place to be allowed, and then there would have to be regulations associated with that. And so that's the one with the most variation and the most questions. So all that said, when Barre voted in November, overall, the majority of residents voted yes. And it makes it what is called a yes community. And so what that means is if you have this list of 8 types of marijuana establishments, and if the town wanted to say, we do not want to allow retail, just as an example, then that would require also a ballot question to be raised to the residents to vote whether or not to prohibit a certain use. So just to flip that around, if you didn't want a manufacturing company to come, then that would be a prohibition, and you would have to put that on a ballot question, and the community would have to decide yes or no to allow that use. It's worth noting that some towns in the region, there's 5 that overall voted no. And interestingly, the law changed in July so those towns who voted no overall could actually prohibit just by a town meeting vote. So in some respects, the yes vote made it a little bit more challenging to prohibit certain uses. It's a 2-step process. One is a ballot vote, then a town meeting. So I thought it was important to kind of just give a little bit of that framework, and I think this is a great beginning process with your planning board, and I think come mid-March and April and through the summer is when you would expect to hear more from the planning board about potential uses, potential locations, and then ultimately you'd see this type of question at town meeting, whether it would most likely be in the fall. But even that is variable depending on what the planning board looks at. So I just wanted to kind of just give a little bit of an overview. I'm sure it's going to raise questions, but I'll stay for a while.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question?
I just want to be sure that I understand, because the town voted yes for legalization, that each of those categories is a separate question that we have to have a ballot question about?
To prohibit.
Right.
Yes.
Would have to be 8 separate questions. Prohibit retail, prohibit on-site consumption, prohibit growing.
Right, so to clarify, if the town, and this is part of the dialogue, if there's some way to gauge that the town doesn't want any marijuana establishment, then you could do that in one ballot question. You just ban all recreational marijuana uses. But it's so early that a lot of towns are looking at the potential for commercial tax revenue, for cultivation facilities, manufacturing, testing, research. There could be some benefit to having a certain type of uses. But if the town did no ballot process, then the planning board would create a zoning bylaw listing all the uses in which district they would allow and permit.
So it's just prohibition has to go on a local ballot, on a town ballot?
Essentially, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Well, the floor is open. If anybody has any comments to make, we've got some new folks that just came in. Welcome.
And Melissa.
Okay.
The letter that came in,
What?
the email that came in,
Sorry?
that email that gentleman
Yeah.
asked to be read. Do you want to do that in the letter?
No,
Okay.
because it's medical. Okay, if there's not any more comments, Sam?
I do have a concern. I'm not supporting or negating what you guys are trying to do. You're doing an admirable job in coming up here. However, we have 3 selectmen and we have 1 town administrator. And I don't know, or I don't not know whether they were invited or not invited. However, those are the people that we vote in to direct, to assist in directing our town with the input from the planning board and the conservation committee and the board of health and all the other boards. And I don't see one person here, and it's not stormy outside, and I would think that, I guess I'm going on the record, and we have a movie running, we have a video running, and hopefully they'll listen to this and they'll see that they're dropping the ball, because we did vote them in to participate. And I'm a little disappointed in their lack of participation. Thank you. I do have a question, if I may. I'm not sure to ask it to, but there's a financial or a fiscal benefit for allowing one of these 8 provisions that Jeff Maggs mentioned, 7 provisions that he mentioned. Yeah, and any of the meetings I've gone to, however, I haven't gone into the meetings in Worcester or Boston, but there's been no definitive value that any board or any person or any entity or any committee has come up and said, if the town of Barre allows X, Y, or Z, whatever it means, in X, the town would receive $50,000, and Y, the town would receive $500,000. There's been no accounting, and I think we're only guessing. And I think that's a component of whether we, just like any business that comes into town, there's a personal property tax, or there's a regular property tax, or there's other taxes that we have to, that we know about. However, there's nothing that we know about marijuana, other than the fact that some organization sold the legislature that we need to have it, yet the directions have stopped, and we don't know what the results are. Thank you.
Yeah, there is one thing we do know. The law gives, or the draft regulations give the local community the right to impose a tax on a retail outlet up to 3%. So, we can do that. You can impose 0 and I guess up to 3%. But that's, how much money you would get be dependent on the volume of business through there. It would be a sales tax. Yeah, Jeff?
That's true. So there are 2 things that are potential benefits to the town in considering something. So as Doug said, for retail establishments, the town, if the town continues to allow retail as a choice and zoning, then town meeting would have to adopt the ability to get 3% of the revenue from that retail establishment. I think Mr. Wilson's correct that there are no solid numbers. Usually it seems like until there's a company that is looking to locate at a specific location, and then they do whatever the calculations they do, and then it's 3% of that revenue is potentially available to the town. But that only applies to retail. The other aspect of the law that exists, and I guess it's supposed to be an incentive, is a host community agreement. So that is an agreement between one of the 8 marijuana uses and the town that can go up to 5% of the revenue of whatever the use is. But the way the draft regulations are set up is that that is for 5 years. But it does allow for things, I think, as the woman said, about education, or some communities are using that to get substance abuse education into schools, and there's a lot of different things you can do with the host community agreement and that's required for any of the uses. So whoever, created the law and created the regulations at least tried to set up some mechanism for the town and the company to reach some type of agreement. So the retail sales, you get 3% every year, and then for all the other uses, there is a host community agreement, which is supposed to offset some of the potential costs of the town. There's negotiations, and there's the ability for the town to ask for certain things. But I think it's clear that you would have to be allowing those uses, so you have to allow retail in order to do 3%. So there's a lot in the law, there's a lot of other things, but I think this is a great introduction for people to start learning about it.
Can any town unilaterally recommend taxes higher than 3%? Where I'm coming from is I believe in Colorado or California or other states, there are taxes of 30% in some states, and that revenue for this product could make a big difference in lowering the real estate taxes in the town of Barre. 3% is nothing. It's even less than the sales tax. Sales tax is 6.25%. So the question is, I guess, can each town unilaterally come up with the fact that there's a state tax of 3%, however, the town of Barre wants to increase that to X percent? And that's my question.
My understanding that the answer to that is no. I think in the original law, it allowed, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, the original law that was passed allowed local communities to impose a tax of 2%, and in the draft regs, they raised that to 3%. But I don't think they can raise it past that. Is that?
Yeah, so that's 3% is the local tax. Yeah, that's how the regulations got set up. It started as 2, and there were a lot of communities that were voicing concern that that wasn't enough, and so an extra 1% of that. And what that means financially is still unclear. I think it is being considered on a case-by-case basis, depending on the town and population that you might draw in with such issues.
Question on the 3% strictly for retail, which would be a storefront likened to, going to a liquor store or a package store. So the 3% would not be applied to, say, a commercial facility that would be manufacturing like edible marijuana. That would not be considered a retail outlet, so we would not be getting 3% of those sales if it was being sold from one marijuana company to another marijuana company?
That's the understanding now, because I think that second item that you mentioned is wholesale.
Right. And then, so our host community agreement would be negotiated for 5 years, and after the 5 years, we would no longer be getting any benefits from those organizations.
Generally, there is some language that seems like you could potentially negotiate a longer term,
Yeah.
but it starts out as saying for 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
But now, isn't there opportunity too in the host community agreements for fees?
Oh, yeah, negotiation for all kinds of stuff.
So, and that's not capped, right?
No.
I don't know. That's sort of a newer area. That's definitely something, so a lot of this, that's the kind of question that if you were, as a town, talking about a host community agreement, you would be talking to your town attorney about those kinds of details.
Okay.
Maybe we could ask that Friday.
We're going to ask you that same question Friday.
Okay. There'll be attorneys in the room.
Be prepared.
My recommendation would be to reach out to some communities, if you were late coming to the table, similar to the solar, if in fact you were a little bit early coming to the table, but to reach out to your neighbors and other communities to find out what type of submit applications to multiple communities and try to work out the best deal. But you don't want to short sell yourself either.
Like like the school district with 5 towns around it, you know?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Dennis, you were at that meeting, the selectmen,
Mm-hmm,
that fellow came in.
mm-hmm.
Now, the way he talked, you could put a tax on the growing when they sell it out to their retailer. They would grow the marijuana, and then when they ship it out and sell it in bulk, that could be taxed. That was my impression.
Sidewalk
When they're growing
occupation
the
fees.
marijuana, they could ship it.
Sidewalk occupation fees.
You know, when they harvest it and they ship it out to the seller.
Stand on the sidewalk.
The seller, there could be a tax on
Or
it.
put
at
a municipal parking lot right next to it.
Yeah, so I think and the board select got a presentation from someone who is a
He said he's a
consultant.
representative of 3 people that want to come and grow.
Yeah, and I know that I did have one conversation with him, and he said he was working with CMRPC, which is a bit of a stretch. We had a conversation about just how the law was shaping up. I don't know the particulars of what he said. I think it was before the regulations came out, so I don't know, there's a lot of.
No, the right, because he just came. When you had your meeting.
This was about a month, it was the same night, no, it wasn't the same night, it was before, about a month ago.
Yeah. Well, I often start, in some of my talks, I often start by saying it's pretty easy to stump the chump, because it's so new and there's so many questions. And we've been trying, as the Regional Planning Commission, to get as much information as we can, but the more information you get, the more questions there appear to be. So there's a lot of unclear areas still, so I don't know. I mean, what I heard, I went to a session for the Mass Municipal Association, and that was the first time that I actually heard 2 people say the tax is only applicable to retail sales. But I think it's still something that will be finalized by the middle of March. So we're definitely in this transitional period that is a lot of questions. So,
Because he was looking for a letter like they did for Dean. That's what he was looking for.
Yeah, what did they call that?
Non-opposition letter?
Non-opposition,
Yeah,
and it was too soon to ask for that.
yeah.
And if I could just reiterate, I did this 2 weeks ago. Gina Hughes, Executive Director with CMRPC, and I would like to clearly state that we have no affiliation with that gentleman. I dropped our name at the selectmen's meeting, and as a way of getting on the selectmen's meeting, I believe he's been trying to drop our name in other communities as well. But we're impartial, we have no involvement, we do not support him, we don't endorse what he's doing. We're a standalone agency, and we're here to offer technical assistance, Barry, part of our community, part of our organization. So I'd just like to make that very clear.
I was questioning.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's a way of getting in the door.
Yeah.
But I was appalled when I read the newspaper, when our name was associated with it.
I bet you don't do that again.
I can't control it, but I make sure that everyone knows that there's no affiliation.
And one of the questions I have, just from a monetary point of view, since this is a cash business, and has been a cash business, and part of it's a concern about what's happening on the federal level, how do you even know what your 3% is? 3%, you know what, how do you even know you're going to be even making 3%? Since right now it's such a cash business. And because of, you know, what's going on with the federal government. So for all of the headaches that could be created, and again, just the concerns that we have and what it's going to take for our police departments and all of our other departments to deal with the issue with whatever your bylaws say, how do we know we're going to get something for all of that hard work we have to make sure that this is all done correctly?
2 cents a box.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question.
One thing, through a preliminary read of the, the regulations, one section for transportation that I was reading, and so far the way that it breaks down is, if you take it out of your facility, it needs to be weighed, recorded on video, signed off, and then when it's brought to the next facility, it has to be once again, weighed on video and written down. So I think accountability with this is going to be paramount. So if the facility is cooking their books to some degree to try to avoid sales tax, 3%, I mean, that seems like that would be, I mean, that's the least of their worries, is paying the town's 3% sales tax. So, I mean, again, we're going to see what the regulations actually state when they're finalized. But it does seem like they're making accountability, putting that in the forefront.
So can I just ask again? So then therefore, if we had a retail store, and then someone could come into that retail store, you would know, or the state would know on a daily basis how much had come into that store, and then how much is gone at the end of the day at that store, and then that we would be multiplying that by 3%, so you would surely know every single day what was there and what was being sold.
If they operate in the same manner for transportation, then it would have to be accounted for as it comes in the door, and then everything that leaves would have, everything that comes in the door would have to be accounted for as it goes out the door. But like I said, these are all preliminary regulations, so who knows what the final regs will hold.
Mr. Chairman. I would think it would be the same thing as any other business. You're just replacing marijuana with selling light bulbs. You sell so many light bulbs, you have a sales tax on that. I would think it would be along the same line, no?
I think the difference, Dennis, is that it's cash only.
That's what I
So
mean.
you don't have charge records.
Right.
It's strictly cash.
Well, they gotta keep a ledger of it.
Because, well, just because I've seen how it's been run in Northampton at the medical dispensary, and because there are banking regulations that are federal regulations, and how that conflicts with the schedule, the marijuana being on the Schedule 1 federal prohibition list. And they don't take cash at the dispensary in Northampton. They'll only take a debit card.
That's better.
Yeah, and so there is a record of the transaction, and they don't take credit cards. It has to be a debit card with a PIN and no cash. So there is a record of all the transactions. And, but, yeah, so there is a record of the transactions. The banks are naturally reluctant to get involved in anything, I don't know how they set it up, but somehow it keeps the banks happy, too. But, I don't know how they do it, but.
But it's medical you're talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
The number of
What's that saying?
Name.
retail sales places, or is it just where they can be?
You mean that would be in the town of Barre?
Yeah.
Well, we have provisions in the law to control the number, and I've read that, and it's fairly complicated. So yes, the answer is you can control the number, and through a zoning law, you can control the location as well. Yeah.
I don't know the numbers in Barre, but the law has been pretty consistent from the November ballot that the community can limit the number of retail establishments to 20% of the package store licenses that are in town. So I'm sure the Barre only has a limited number, so 20% of that is the most we can limit. And the way it is complicated because from there it changes that if you want to go less than 20%, then you have to go back to the ballot process because you're strictly limiting. But if you wanted to limit your number to 50% of the package store licenses, then you can do that via a zoning file. So it gives you a little bit of ability to limit the number, but it's not carte blanche. I guess.
With a minimum of one.
Right, there's a minimum. Right. There's all the
Only half
Yes, that would be an opt-out, which is a valid vote in.
Okay.
we have any other comments, questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate it. It's been helpful, and this helps us to do our job, to hear from the citizens and hear what the concerns are and hear the arguments on both sides. So, thank you.
Thank you very, very much for having this.
Hey guys, can we stick around and talk about those